Hi, I'm Dr. Lauren Brannon, and in this video, you will learn about teaching vocabulary through specific word instruction. Let's review what we've learned about reading comprehension. In the simple view of reading, we learned that reading comprehension is the product of word recognition and language comprehension. Vocabulary, or knowledge of word meanings, is a component of language comprehension. So, in this presentation, we will focus on the language comprehension factor. Here, we see the simple view of reading in more detail. We see the many strands that make up language comprehension and word recognition, and that ultimately lead to skilled reading. Vocabulary is one of the strands of the language comprehension side of the rope. In this video, we will look at the vocabulary strand of the language comprehension part of the rope. Here we see the four-part processing model for word recognition. We already know that the model is made up of four processors and that the phonological processor deals with sound and the orthographic processor deals with the symbols or letters. In this video, we will learn more about the meaning and context processors and how they are connected to word meanings. When a word is decoded, the meaning processor is used to determine the word's meaning. If the word has multiple meanings, the context processor is used to determine the meaning which is being used within that particular context. For example, if a child decodes the word swing, the meaning processor recognizes several word meanings, and the context processor helps the child determine which meaning of swing is being used in the sentence. In the next segment, we will discuss the what of vocabulary. Vocabulary refers to a person's knowledge of and memory for word meanings. Research has consistently shown that vocabulary is highly correlated with reading comprehension. In fact, vocabulary accounts for about 50 to 60% of the variation in reading comprehension scores. Vocabulary is not ever fully mastered. It continues to grow throughout our lifetime. Receptive vocabulary refers to words that we hear or read. Expressive vocabulary refers to words that we use when speaking or writing. Words that are stored in our phonological lexicon, or words that we've heard before, may not necessarily be stored in our semantic lexicon, or our mental dictionary of word meanings. When words are stored in both the phonological and semantic lexicons, a reader is more likely to recognize the word when reading. This is because when a reader decodes a word, they are able to compare it to the words they already know and try to make sense of the new word. If an unfamiliar written word is part of the reader's oral vocabulary, they will be able to code it more quickly and understand it. The National Reading Panel report stated that word recognition is only beneficial if the target word is in the reader's oral vocabulary. If you think about it, it makes sense. Most people have a larger receptive vocabulary than expressive vocabulary. This is because being able to use a word expressively in speaking or writing requires a deeper knowledge of the word than comprehending it. Using a word expressively represents true ownership of the word. When we are selecting words to teach students, it is important to consider the three tiers of vocabulary words. Tier 1 includes basic everyday words such as the, a, daddy, and food. Tier 2 words occur frequently in language, but are not used as often as Tier 1 words. These words might include murmur, splendid, gigantic, and conceal. Tier 3 includes low-frequency, specialized words that occur often in content areas. These words include words like trapezoid, interstellar, and photosynthesis. Tier 2 words are the best choice for specific word instruction because students are more likely to encounter these words more often in written text. However, English language learners may benefit from Tier 1 vocabulary instruction. Keep in mind that word choice will vary, depending on the background knowledge of the students. For some students, a word may be an everyday Tier 1 word, but for others it may be a Tier 3 word. For example, for students growing up on a farm, the word combine is a Tier 1 word, referring to a machine that is used to harvest crops. However, for students in more urban areas, this word may be a Tier 3 word because it is specific to farming. In a classic research study, Hart and Riesly found huge differences in preschoolers' exposure to words based on their socioeconomic situation. They found that 3-year-olds from higher income homes had vocabularies up to 5 times larger than children from lower income homes. This gap continues to grow without intervention. Also, another study showed that children with smaller vocabularies need to learn at least 2 new words per day from kindergarten through 2nd grade to catch up to their peers. In the next segment, we will discuss the how to teaching specific vocabulary words. Vocabulary instruction should be rich and robust. Robust instruction offers rich information about words and their uses. It provides frequent and varied opportunities for students to think about and use words, and enhances students' language comprehension and production. Teach vocabulary within a specific context, such as within a book that you are reading aloud. The book can be the same one that you have already selected to teach a different comprehension skill. When you contextualize vocabulary, students learn words within a familiar situation, and it provides them with a rich example of the word's use. Now let's talk about planning a vocabulary lesson. First, you select a book. Again, this book needs to be age appropriate and interesting for your students. It can be a book that you've already selected to teach something in your content area or another reading skill. Select the words that you would like to teach. These are most often your Tier 2 words that occur frequently in written language, but they're not used as often in our oral language. Teach your words explicitly. And the first step for this is to introduce the first word. So at this step, you want to pronounce the word for your students, write the word, and then read the word. Next, provide a student-friendly explanation. Characterize the word and how it is typically used. So, for example, you might want to talk about the part of speech it is. Explain the meaning in a kid-friendly, everyday example. So in kid-friendly language. Don't use the dictionary definition because those can be hard to comprehend sometimes. So for example, with the word exasperated, I might explain it this way. Exasperated is an adjective that describes when someone feels annoyed, irritated, or frustrated. The next step is to provide examples and or visuals. So provide several example sentences showing how the word can be used. So for example, a sentence might be, I felt exasperated when I didn't make the soccer team, even though I practiced. You can provide your students with pictures and or videos to support their understanding of this word. And when you can, provide students with a chance to act out the words when it's appropriate. So for example, show me how you would look if you felt exasperated. And you can only imagine the different looks on their faces when they show you what exasperated might look like. Ask questions about the word's meaning. Use yes/no questions to help students to determine if the word is being used correctly. So for example, do you feel exasperated when your mom cooks your favorite meal? No. Or, does losing at a game make you feel exasperated? Yes, it might. Next, elicit word use by students. So at this stage, we want the students to practice using this word in their oral language. Provide the students with opportunities to use the word by using sentence stems if they're needed. So for example, you could give the stem, I feel exasperated when, and then have your students finish this. They could finish this independently, or they could turn and tell a partner. Which brings me to the next suggestion, using think, pair, share. So turn and tell your partner about a time when you felt exasperated. Then we read the text. This is the book that you selected and where you found the word. So we're going to read aloud the text now. Have the students listen for the words you just taught and stop and discuss the word and how it was used in the text. Next, continue the student's exposure to this word. We don't want to only introduce it and then leave it forever. Come back and revisit the word and encourage students to use the new words, as often as possible. One way to practice using vocabulary is to explore the word relationships using semantic maps. And on semantic maps, you can include areas where students write the dictionary definition, write a sentence using the word, include a synonym for the word and an antonym for the word, and they can also illustrate the word. In this video, you learned about the importance of vocabulary and reading comprehension, and how words can be classified into tiers, and how to provide instruction for specific words. I'll end with this quote. Vocabulary enables us to interpret and to express. If you have a limited vocabulary, you will also have a limited vision and a limited future.